My, Destiny, what a year it's been. Released on September 2014, Destiny was the most hyped game ever. It was unanimous hype. Literally, it was crazy. The world thought it would be the biggest game of all time. With a budget of $500 million, the world could not disagree with this. With such a budget, how could Destiny not be the best game of all time? But personally, I thought that it failed, and many others did. While it is a great game still, in my opinion, it did not live up to the hype that it was once originally meant to be, really. But it it was impossible, personally. I think it could never have reached that. No matter the budget, it would never have gotten to the perfection that the world wanted it to be. It was never going to be the best game of all time, because not everyone was going to get invested into a game like that. But anyway, let me go over every individual part of Destiny in a year. So it started out with story, which quote unquote story. It was quite basic, to be honest. It was the darkness, and you were the light, and you must destroy the darkness. You can already tell, even if you haven't played Destiny, then that is a pathetic story, and many agreed with that. It was much, 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 much less than what the people wanted it to be. I mean, after people coming from Halo, Bungie was like the gods of shooters for Xbox, but when it came to PlayStation, I mean, I hadn't played much Halo. I'd never owned an Xbox, but even though I've never played Halo, I can already know the amount of support that's been given to Bungie from Halo, and that many people just bought this under the company name alone. But I mean, I just went into it because I like my sci-fi shooters, and I thought, well, this is going to be the best game of all time. So I put my money into it, and it was a great game. But the story was very lackluster to many. And the gameplay, though, I personally think held up. Really good shooting mechanics. The loot at the beginning, leveling your character, very, very good. You had a lot of choice in the way you're leveling your characters. You had two subclasses at the start. Won't go too much into it for those of you who really fully interested in Destiny. But if you aren't, I don't know why you're watching this video. If you don't care about Destiny, I don't know why you're watching this, but I thank you anyway. But yeah, it was very deep gameplay and good RPG mechanics. I mean, it wasn't exactly a full-on RPG, but it had very good leveling up mechanics and stuff. Unfortunately, I'd say the loot got a bit bland for me in the late game, even with these expansions, which I'll get onto in a sec. I just felt that there wasn't much point for me obtaining loot. I can understand for those people who want to get it all, they want all the weapons in the game and all that, but I personally had no interest in grabbing everything, even though I am a huge Borderlands fan and all that, but it never interested me. Anyway, obviously over the course of Destiny, so far, three expansions come out. We had the Dark Below that came out in December of 2014. We had the House of Wolves, which dropped on May, I think. And then we had the Taken King that recently came out in September. I am recording this as of November, so it's quite recent. There's still content coming out from that. But anyway, the Dark Below was a huge disappointment. I mean, we paid £20 here. I mean, it's like $20 in America, if I'm correct. I mean, everything's cheaper over there with expansion-wise. And yeah, we were disappointed with free story missions. Free story missions for 20 quid? I mean, the raid and the Crucible stuff, but really, the only good thing that came out of that expansion, personally, was the raid. The story mission lasted, one of them, the first one, lasted 5 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes for a 20 quid expansion. And then the next few missions were lackluster. The story never got anywhere. I mean, Bungie was like, we're going to make the story better. They apologised, which is nice. And they're giving us free content nowadays, which is nice. But they didn't, at the time they promised, oh, we'll give you a better story. But they didn't, which was a shame. But, the raid was still good. Then the House of Wolves dropped, which added no raid, but it gave us the Prison of Elders, which I actually enjoyed more, believe it or not, because I like my horde mode, killing off endless amount of enemies, but there wasn't really endless enemies, it was more of a wave-based, but it was quite limited. But I still enjoyed it, and many agreed that while the story was short, again, had a few more story missions than the Dark Below, had like 5 to 6 this time. We had a better character development. We had Pet Revenge who people who haven't played Destiny are like, what the hell is he talking about? But I thought she had more character than the rest, and Varix was nice and all that. And they also introduced us to the Trials of Osiris. That was good, except I'm stuck at it because I don't have good teammates. Never do. And also, I have no willing people to join me for the raid for Oryx. I've still not done it, and it's been 2 months. But anyway, we then moved on to the Taken King. The Taken King, personally, is an amazing expansion. I think they did a lot of things right. You're seeing Taken King gameplay here actually right now, but I thought the Taken King did a great job, even though it took £40 out of my hard-earned cash. But I still enjoyed it. But Destiny now has taken over £100 off me. When it's getting to that level of money you're spending on a game, you expect near perfection, considering how much money they want us to spend on this game. And with more expansions on the way, I hear there's one coming out in December of 2015. They're expecting a lot of money off this, and they really have got to keep it up. But anyway, the Taken King added a new area. I mean, only in the base game we had the Cosmodrome, which is Russia on Earth, and I don't think Bungie has realised that Earth has more places than just Russia, but hopefully they'll add that. And then we had the Moon. I liked it, but it was not as colourful as the Cosmodrome, but it would be weird if it was colourful. And then we had Venus. That was very good. I like all the stuff. That's a great description. I liked it there. And Mars, well, was just a desert. I mean, it was alright. I didn't really find it that amazing, but I'm not really a fan of that kind of landscape and stuff. And then anyway, we have the Dreadnought in the Taken King, which is like, as Bungie described it, a castle in the sky. I like that description. I think it's a fitting description for the area. And I added quite a few cool things. We had things like little collectibles you could get. They had you could get swords now. Swords are cool. Everyone likes swords. And then we had the Court of Oryx, which, for those who don't know much about the Taken King, it's pretty much it's a public event. People could go off and get loot. That was fun. I mean, the Agnarat rune? No. There's a stage 3 rune you can get, which pretty much allows you to fight a weekly boss that updates. And give you, I think, I haven't had an exotic from it, but it definitely gives you legendaries. And anyway, that was, I thought that was good teamwork-wise, but again, I had no one to help me, really. And then the raid was also along with that, which was, what I've played of it is very good. I'd say it was the best raid, but I haven't finished it. But I have seen the raid being played, so from what I can tell, it's an excellent raid. And the loot, well, I've not got any on screen yet. I've got the exotic weapon there, and there's a fusion rifle from a strike. That's all very good. But I think the biggest improvement that the Taken King brought upon us all was the story. While it isn't Mass Effect levels of story, it's still quite good for what Destiny compared to what Destiny has shown us in the past. The cutscenes is many more than there was in the base game. It actually makes some good. It had a good space battle at the start, and everyone in sci-fi loves their space battles. The game just felt like it had a better story, and it made you feel more invested into the world that is Destiny. But still, they like to use Grimoire cards on us, and they want us to go off the game to actually look at actual context to the game, which I think is stupid. I know it's they're trying to think of a way to put the Grimoire into the game, but they're not really done much progress with that. And I mean, I don't think it's that difficult to get an in-game codex. I'm not exactly asking you to add another hub world, are we? No. The Reef was not an amazing place. I mean, everyone still goes to the tower since the Taken King came out. The only reason you go to the Reef is for Trials or Prison of Elders, but nobody plays Prison of Elders anymore because the Taken King's out. And that's the problem with Destiny. Old content is becoming inferior. I mean, for people who don't own any of the expansions in Destiny, they've pretty much been cut off from the Destiny community. Because back in the day, if you owned Destiny, there was no expansions at the time. There was strike playlists which earned you loot. You play through 30-minute missions with a team of 2 other people, and you would go off and get loot. Very good and all that. But now you can only do that in one playlist if you don't own the expansion. Back in the day, you could do 4 different playlists, but now 1. Crucible-wise, you've only got they've clumped it all into one mode because the Taken King is dominated the Crucible selection, which I honestly, even though I own the expansions, I don't know how it probably feels, but it must be quite annoying because you've paid, £40 here for a copy of Destiny, and the value of it has gone down over time as expansions come out, which has made that quite unfair. And personally, I think they should, I think a lot of people are actually saying to make the base game of Destiny free to play. I would really disagree with that because that would get a lot of hate from people unless they gave us like the next few expansions for free. That would be great. I wouldn't mind it then. But yeah, that went well. But I mean, I think after a while, Destiny has become quite, as I said, been in the past, repetitive. Loot missions, all that. It's all become the same. You go up to your cryptarch, who does all your loot for you. You give in your legendary engram or your rare engram, and he'll give you a legendary. Like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. Yeah, I may be just unlucky with loot, but that's what loot's been like for me recently. And I have been taking breaks from Destiny. I've been playing stuff like GTA, but honestly, I think Destiny needs to be more. It has to have more unique content added into it. Because when expansions come out, we're getting stuff like, oh, return to the Cosmodrome, and you have to repeat the same area, which is really stupid, I'd say. It's not adding value to your expansion that you've paid your hard-earned money for. But, maybe next expansions can change that, or a possible sequel. But that's taking more money out of us. But I hear you can transfer your Guardians, that's good. Hopefully they incorporate that system in. But I mean, today I'd say Destiny's becoming a bit more quiet compared to games like Fallout, Call of Duty. For what was meant to be the biggest game of all time, within a year, there are still hardcore players of Destiny. But I'd say it's become quite, well, quiet. It's still popular, as I've already just said. But yeah, I think they need to give us something more than the Taken King, or something, constant free patches, so that the people who don't own expansions will still feel invested to enter the world of Destiny. But in my opinion, it's still a great game, but I'm starting to feel the repetition of it become a bit too much now. To score a game like Destiny is very difficult. If I were to score it, I'd score it on the base game, Dark Below, House of Wolves, and The Taken King. So for the base game, which had quite a lacking story, it had good gameplay, but a bit short on content, even more now if you don't own the expansions, I'd give it a 7. I mean, the graphics, I haven't talked about the graphics yet, but as you can just tell from the footage here, it's a very beautiful game. I'd say there's nothing wrong with the graphics, and performance-wise, Destiny holds up perfectly, I'd say. I've not ever had a frame rate drop in Destiny. In the early days, there was a lot of connection issues, but that was because Destiny was so big back then. And now look at it, it's become a bit more stable. Yeah, stable's a good word. And then probably for the Dark Below, I'd have to give it a 4, because just there's not enough content in it for your money. The raid is it, really. That's all you're getting out of it. And that isn't good enough for something you pay that much for. I'd understand if it was a 5 and you just got the story, or even just the raid. But as a self-contained story, is you kill Crota, who's just fights for Oryx, who links into the Taken King, which is fine. But it's just as a self-contained story, it's all right. But as what Destiny's promised, saying it's going to be the next big story, we're going to fix it, and it basically did nothing. It's a bit lacking. House of Wolves, I'm going to give it a 7.5. Yeah, 7.5. Because I think the Prison of Elders is a solid mode. They've added a bit more value to your expansion, adding Trials versus Size, which is probably the best competitive multiplayer I've ever played, ever. But I'm just rubbish at it. Yeah, me being rubbish at stuff is quite obvious, as you can tell in my videos. And yeah, it's great. The teamwork in Prison of Elders and Trials is, it's something you don't see in video games nowadays. And, well, Taken King, I would say, gives a 8.59 even, because it's given you, even though it was £40, the value and content that they're still giving us is quite crazy. We're still getting free patches, but the raid is probably the best multiplayer that I have seen in video gaming, but it was probably a flawless piece of work. But as I said, I haven't finished the raid. I've played over half of the raid, and from what I've seen, if you don't have good teammates, you're screwed, by the way. But from what I've seen of it, it is flawless, personally, and the story is fixed so much. I mean, it makes it actually a good adventure, even though it's still a bit basic. I would say it definitely makes you feel like you're on a sci-fi adventure instead of just you're back, go here, kill that, do this, do that. It feels like a flowing adventure. Just feels better in a game. And anyway, that has been a review of Destiny. Hope you've enjoyed, and leave any likes, comments, or if you don't like this review, feel free to dislike it. But yeah, if you've liked this, like it. If you didn't like it, dislike it. Hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you next time.